Okay, so in Rhino, oh, I'll show you how you can create a simple surface, and then we're just in Grasshopper running this contour script so that you can start to see how your manipulations affect it. So I'm gonna go ahead and create a new surface, and I'm gonna use the dimensions of 10 by 20 because that's the typical sizing of these. So I'm gonna start there, do 20, hit 10, and here's your surface. And next thing I want to do is rebuild the surface. I essentially wanted to create a simple grid for this so that I can take the control points and just start pushing and pulling those. So if I select this one, just so I can remember how I rebuilt it, it's 9 by 7. So that seemed like it was a good value for me to use. So I'm going to select this surface I just created. I'm going to type rebuild, and I'm going to give it a U count of 9, a V count of 7, and then use a degree of 3 for both of those. And you can start to see how that grid changes. So I'm going to hit OK. So now you've got this grid of control points. So now I want to actually start manipulating those control points. So I'm going to go over to the left, and I'm going to select points on. Not the edit points on, but the points on, the one on the right-hand side. And so now I can see where these points are. The first thing I want to do is actually think about where I have my high point versus my low point. I'm going to designate this area as my high point of my bioretention cell, and this is my low point. So I'm going to grab these points right here, and I'm going to move them vertically down how many feet? What's the depth of water they usually need to collect in these? Huh? 6 inches, so negative 0.5. So before I do anything else, I'm going to go ahead and reference this surface in Grasshopper. So all I did is took my surface, referenced it, used the contour component, and gave it a distance of 0.1. So you can see that it's really just showing contours right there. But I just want this so I can achieve what I'm hoping for. So instead of it just being that drop off, I want it to take on more of this meandering quality. So this is like the really cool, simple way to figure out how to manipulate surfaces to achieve a certain drainage outcome. So again, I'm going to say I want my outlet to be right here. So I'm going to take this control point, drop that down. So now you can see that I've got my closed contour there. Now I need to start directing water from somewhere up here to down here. So I'm going to take this one, start lifting that up. Maybe I'll take this one. Sometimes it's easier to find the points that you want to drop down to create that swale. So I'm just going to start to kind of zigzag through. So I'm going to drop that one down a little bit. I'm going to also select this one and drop that down some. So now you can start to see it creating that swale. Then I'm going to say, so I just moved that one down. Now I want to move this one down. Because again, we kind of want it to start zigzagging or meandering. So I'm just going to almost alternate the ones for this. So there you go. So now you've already got this kind of meandering-like quality for your surface. Now I'm just going to exaggerate or accentuate some of the berms on this. Obviously, I don't want to drag some of them up too high, else I can start to see how I detach them. Oh, too much. So I might have to, come on, where are you? So there, just so you make sure you have a continual drainage. Just going to do a couple more. All right, pretty cool. So you can start, like I said, by just taking that surface and adding some control points to it and start lifting them up, you can easily start to create this meandering quality to it where you can see how the water is going to start to follow these swales from your inlet to your outlet. So there's our surface. Now we have to actually start to create those conditions around it. So the first thing we need to do is actually give it that soil depth. So if I go back to my lecture notes, I can see for a BioRetention cell, oh yeah, it's near the top. So I've got this one. So again, so my rain garden cells, they have 2 to 3 inches of mulch. So that's the first thing I want to do. So I'm going to take this surface, extrude it, and do negative 0.25 for that 3 inches. So there's my 3 inches of mulch. Now I'm also going to, let's undo that real quick. So just so I have that surface still, I'm going to do extrude surface, but I'm also going to say delete input no. That way I still have the original one. I'm just going to do negative 0.25 again. So that way I've got that on the top, but it's also still a closed surface. I can now move that one down to beneath that. And then I want my 3 to 4 inches of soil mix. So I'm going to do extrude surface again. Now I'm going to do negative 3. And now I can delete that. So now you can see that you've got your mulch layer and your soil mix layer. I'm going to go ahead and put these on their respective layers over here. So that is my biocell. So this is going to be my soil mix. So what else do we need to add to this? Are these just free floating? What? Nope, you don't, there's no rough aggregate. It should just all be compacted soil. So is this concrete? What? The curve, right? So we need to actually start to contain this so it doesn't just have soil spill out everywhere. So I'm going to go to my top view. I'm going to just draw a rectangle or let's just draw the rectangle. Go to my curb layer and just draw to those edges. I'm going to take that. I'm going to then offset it. I'm going to use a distance of 0.75 feet or 9 inches. It's typically around 8 inches or 6. So now I've got my offset curve as well as the one that's flush with the soils. So I can take both of those and I'm going to first extrude them, or I could actually just move them up to the top of this curve, the vertical, and typically you want these to be about 6 inches in height. So let's do 0.5 and not 6 feet. So there's the top of your curve. Now I can extrude this curve, so both of them, if I have both of them selected, it'll actually keep it as a edge. So extrude curve. I'm going to make sure I don't do both sides. So I'm going to do it, this is where it's a little tricky. I'm going to undo that first. I want to draw a line to know how far I want this to go. So I'm going to do line, V for vertical, and generally what you want these to be is, obviously it's already 6 inches high. Then you want this to go down anywhere between 12 to 18 more inches underneath the grade. So I'm going to just, for the sake of simplicity, do 2. So I'll do -2, hit enter. So now I know that I just have to extrude it that far. I'm going to go back here, extrude curve. Don't do both sides. Just drop it down to that. Oops, so let's also make it solid. So there's your curve. What you have to do now is even include where your curb cut is. So we're just going to use our Boolean difference to remove where we want that to be. To help remember where that is, I want to draw some contours. So I'm going to select this surface. I'm going to curve, I'm just going to go ahead. That's the best way to do this. I'm just going to explode this. I should have probably kept that original one. So now I can just contour that one. So I'm going to select contour, find the base point, which is, I'm just going to select one of these corners so I can tell it to go up. And give it a distance of 0.1 in this case. But now I've got my contour showing up. And so now I just want to make sure hopefully you guys don't run or remember from my mistakes not to delete that original one. So I have to go back and select these and join them all. Okay. So you've got your soil mix, your contours, your mulch, your curb now. And we want to delete a segment of that. So I'm just going to use a cube. There's really no standard sizing or dimensioning for this. It's kind of up to you on how you want it to look. Like I said, I can see that the water is or the swale is kind of aiming for that corner. So I'm going to just draw it to be about this wide. I'm just going to extend it up a little, I'll scale it out. Now I'm just going to drop it down until it meets that surface grade. Now I'll use my Boolean difference. So select surface or polysurface to subtract from. That's that one. There's a cutting object. There's that. So now I've got my curve cut. Okay, so I think we've pretty much got that figured. Like I said, I'm not going to do it because it's a little tedious, but you can even start to include like pavers and all those mixes from the previous assignment. So these ones are literally like individual pavers, which I don't like. You can if you want to invest in that. It's not the most difficult, but it's definitely attainable. I'm going to go back to this one now. And so, how do we get our, it's pretty easy to get our top view drawing of this, or our plan view. I can just select that, export it as an Illustrator file. How do I get my section drawings though? Huh? A clipping plane, right? Is that what I? Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. I'm going to right-click my viewport, say, go all the way down to the bottom and say clipping plane. This is going to be a vertical one, so I'll just start there. Hold, let's do ortho, vertical ortho. Again, it doesn't really matter what size. I don't know why I went that direction. Let's flip it. And so now all you have to do is, I would drag it to, so it actually intersects with your curve cut. Don't do it, oops. Don't do it out here, so that way, like when you see that view, that it doesn't appear that there's a curve cut. So make sure to move it far enough in so that when you're in that view, oops, not that one. I don't know which view it is in. Oh, it's because I'm too far out. And I have the wrong one selected. There we go. And this is why I wanted to also keep those as solid surfaces, because it actually will keep that thickness of that surface. It isn't going to show it as being hollow. If I were to remove any of that, or like make that not having it a closed surface, it's actually going to come off as hollow and it's just going to look weird. So what do I do from here? So I've got my section cut. Make 2D. Perfect. So I'm going to select that, type make 2D. I'm going to say use the current view. I'm going to determine, maybe you want to show the hidden lines, maybe not. Maybe you want to show the tangent edges. That way, like when it's kind of running flush with that view, that it'll still show that. Let's just see what this does. So now I'm going to take that. I want to make sure that neither of these are active, or at least in front of it. You'll notice that if you don't move those back, that you're going to have your 2D drawing hidden. So now there is your section drawing in that direction. And then you just want to do the same thing for your cross-section drawing. So this is where, let's go back, say, clipping plane, vertical. Let's get on the right layer. I'm just going to do it there. I'll select it. There's really no exact place where you want to show that. Like, it can be in any distance. Generally, it's easier looking up, so don't do it looking down. That way you can see more in the background of this. Obviously, the lower you do it, the more you're going to see. And then you're just going to do the same thing where you're there we go. So there's that view. Then you just do the same thing. So when I talk about this in the assignment to show that soil information, in the beginning of the lecture notes where it talks about this information, that's where you're going to actually show, like, hey, like I've got, or no, sorry, not that one. You're going to use, like, go further down, this soil comes. This is really what you want to show in that diagram. That you've got your mulch, that's 2 to 3 inches, a soil mix, it's 18 to 48 inches. You might want to have washed stone, and then talk about that soil mixture that you've chosen. So this information isn't its own separate graphic. This is going to be within your cross-section section type. Does that make sense? So this information all goes in this drawing. Everyone clear on that? You don't do this as one drawing and then do this as a separate. They're going to be integrated with each other. And that's why this is at 1 inch equals 1 foot, just because it's a smaller drawing, and therefore you can show that in a larger scale. Any questions so far? Okay. We don't need that anymore. So let's do one more thing. Again, I'm kind of limited because I don't have the Wi-Fi on this, but so we've gone over how to do the 3 graphic components. There's the one last one of your schematic diagram of the parking lot itself. So I'm going to draw a very simple parking lot of a rectangle. If you were to do this 1 acre as a square, it's about 204 feet squared. So I'm just going to draw a rectangle. So it's going to be 408 by 204. So there's my 2 acre parking lot. Once I turn off my clipping. So there we go. So that's really the extent of, in terms of like the size. It'll be easier too if you actually show the parking stalls. That way we know where these are going. There's a lot of different ways you can do that. Maybe you start off, let's use this curb color. I'm going to draw it since I know that they're about 10 feet by 20 feet. Let's try 100 as one lane. Now I can do 40, just so I'm showing both. Now I'll just move it from its mid direction there. Then I can array it. So that's like my path curve. So number of items. So if it's 100 feet, that means I probably should have 10. Or let's do 11. So it's nice because that, or you could do distance between lines. So again, it's 10 feet. So there's your parking stalls for that. Now all you have to do is possibly, just kind of configure it the way you think. Remember, you're going to need to have 22 of these. That's not going to let a car get through. So you can just start to kind of copy these, move them over proportionately. Maybe you even need to include some more on these edges. So I'm going to say that it goes like that. And 20. And now I'm just going to, in this case, array it all the way across. Like that. And again, I'm just going to use distance between line items. Now I've got all those parking lots. So it's pretty easy if you just use that array command to get them all at equal distances and everything. Yeah. Questions so far? Are we good? Okay. So I'm going to go into my top view. I'm going to select this, type export to file, export selected. Exercises. Export as my Illustrator. Call it existing parking. I do want to preserve this at a scale, so I'm going to do 1, or I'm going to do 50 feet equals 1 inch. Hit OK. Now I can go to Illustrator, do File, Open. Okay. There we go. Now let's make sure this is the correct paper size. Not for an iPad mini. That looks good. So there's my parking lot. I'm going to delete, or at least hide them for now. That way I can just draw a rectangle. Get rid of those other stuff. I'm just going to take, so what you can do is, I mean, an easy way, you can find an actual aerial image or whatnot, or you can just give it a dark color, go to Effect, Texture, Texturizer, choose this one, make it sandstone, you can change the scale, you give it more relief, give it less, so it's subtle. So there's your asphalt parking lot, pretty detailed, joking. And now I can just take that, those parking lot stalls, give them a whitish color, maybe a little offset. And there's your fancy parking lot. In this case, maybe I want to, aim for that A and choose a different blending mode. So let's do maybe that overlay so you can actually get the asphalt coming through. Yeah, money. Let's stop recording.